cloud here.
Howdy ho, friends and foes, and welcome to Dads on Life, your weekly episodic show about parenting from a male perspective. I'm your host, Jay Miles, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts Keith Bogan,
Good morning, sir.
Doug Hammerdike,
Present.
and Chad Holloway.
Happy Sunday.
Absent today is our new co-host, Dave Dusenberry. Dave is down in Delaware with his mom. He's obviously he's got some stuff he's going on down there. I know his brother is moving down there, in the process of moving down there, or will be shortly, so probably some family things going on. So he is off for today. Today we're going to be talking about a case that was heard by the U.S. Supreme Court, in which a football coach was in, I believe, I'm not 100% sure where it was. I don't think it was, I don't know if it was Texas, but I'm not sure exactly where it was. Because Texas, it kind of happens and people do it and it's not not even tampered with. But there was a football coach who was fired from the high school he was a coach at because he wanted to initiate a prayer after a game.
Let's be fair, he did it a number of times before they fired him.
I know that, but well, okay. Basically, the Supreme Court decided that he can do it. So far, I'm not 100%. I don't not believe he's been brought back yet. But who wants to kick us off on the process of that topic?
I think we have to be very careful today not to wander down the political lines for sure. But suffices to say, from my perspective, I have no problem with it whatsoever, as long as every single religion on the planet, and there are thousands of them, is afforded the same opportunity. That might cause some delays and some problems getting other things done in the school system, but that's what the court says. So that's exactly what we should do.
I'm going to start by saying this. I hope my point is clear. With things that happen in places like West Paducah, Columbine, Parkland, Red Lion, Red Lake, Blacksburg, Dover, Jonesboro, Oakland, Sandy Hook, Santa Monica, Marysville, Roseburg, Parkland, Santa Fe, and Uvalde, these kids go through enough. And sometimes incidents like that, 17 of them, and that's just a short list of them. Sometimes these kids may find relief and solace in prayer. So if that helps them get through what can be a tough day sometimes, and when these school shootings happen, it helps them get through and cope with it, or possibly could maybe even stem an incident from happening. I'm kind of all for it but like Keith said, yes, all religions must be included. Because if it's not, if there's exclusion, that's where I personally think you've got major problems.
When I don't even think it's, like, from my perspective, it's not even for necessarily for those, just for people who believe. And, my understanding, I've just briefly read the case, was that the coach was praying by himself, but he invited others to join him if they wanted to join him. I have no problem with an individual praying at school. Growing up, we had a rural school, and we had a lot of different, even the religious groups, or one of the religious groups, I should say, the dominant church in town, which I was not a part of, would congregate themselves, and you could always identify them because they had on real long skirts and their hair's in a bun, and they would kind of do their own thing, but they were doing their own thing, right? And they weren't asking anybody else to do that, and they all did it voluntarily. And I think the real difference in this case is that you've got a teacher or an employee who was called out on that rather than a student.
Right.
And you know, if this teacher wants to pray on his time, I mean, I think, there's the school time versus his time. And if it's a break, if the game is over and he wants to pray, if it's right before the game and he wants to pray, he can do that. And actually our football coach would always do that. He'd say, put your hands in. He would, we'd say, dear God, whatever. And he would have a little something to say, but nobody thought of it. We were all Christians. So it wasn't a thing that never kind of hit the radar, if you will. But if an individual wants to exercise his or her right, I don't have a problem with it. It's when the school, and one of the things I've noticed, we've been talking a lot about the things that happen in schools lately. And the schools now have come so far from reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? And they can't even deliver that anymore. I mean, it just, our numbers are going, we look horrible compared to the rest of the world. We can't even do what their core function is supposed to be at this point. And maybe, this, hopefully it's not expanding the conversation too much, but I think to allow individuals to do this stuff, it's not an organized school thing. So I don't have a problem with it. But at the same time, there's so many things that we're now integrating into the school, saying, well, the school could do this, but the schools can't do what they were supposed to do very well anymore. I think we need to go back to the core competencies of the school and what they need to deliver. But in this case, if this guy wants to pray, as long as he's not forcing anybody else to do that, that's fine. And to your point, this goes for any religion.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem, obviously, because my kids go to Catholic school. So yeah, there is a difference there. And I mean, I believe that praying is healthy. And like to Jason's point, it might be helpful for different situations than just being, I don't know. Yeah. I actually prepared for a different topic. I thought we were doing Max wrestling thing actually today.
Oh, no. That's next week. Because we missed last week.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, we'll get into that later. You honestly, I figured you would be, even still, you'd be the one who'd have the dissenting opinion in this, or at least the more informed opinion, having this probably involved in your kid's school anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, parents are important to us, and I've always said about my dad and parents, praying all the time, everywhere, and it's just like normal for us. And I do know about the football case, and I have no problem with it. The Supreme Court's decision, I think, was right, with what their ruling was. And like we've all said, that as long as it encompasses all religions that want to participate or do something, then fine. And I mean, we've seen it from knee bows in end zones, which might be showboating or considered showboating, to a lot of people on social media, just like, well, your prayers don't matter, which sometimes offends me, or gets me irritated.
Mhm.
But I don't lately I've just kind of calmed down with the whole social media thing, and I don't think it really accomplishes much.
Mhm.
So that's my feeling today, and my kids understand the use of prayer, and it's used in our house. So, it's very important to us.
Well, I mean, probably, and it's not school. Actually, he was doing it in Florida, but I know one of the most talked about instances of this kind of thing was, and it was, it became a thing, literally became a trend, was when Tim Tebow was, it became Tebowing essentially.
Right.
But it started out 1,000,000% as a prayer. It was, Tebow would score a touchdown, he'd take a knee, like, probably he had been doing his whole career, even back in the high school, that it was, and it was his thing. He'd say whatever. I mean, this is the same guy who used to, in the black, he used to write under their eyes. He used to write biblical phrases, not biblical phrases, but like Matthew, Matthew 3:16 and stuff like that. The Psalms and that actually became a thing too. There's a lot of players that are still doing that, even in college. But that's the one thing is I understood Tim doing it because that's his thing. And Tim's, he seems like a pretty okay guy, okay kid at the time, who, I mean, he took a lot of crap, but it seemed like he actually was keeping to himself and kept himself pretty well together and had himself pretty well together, except for the fact that he sucked at football when he came to the NFL. But even now, he seems like he's still pretty well put together in the head and everything. And I believe, and honestly, I believe that his upbringing is part of that. But when it became a trend and people were doing it just to do it, like it was a TikTok thing or a social media thing, TikTok didn't exist at the time. But then when it became a thing, it was that was when it was kind of like, okay, that's really a little bit annoying. But because plain and simple fact is people lost sight of why Tim was doing it when they started doing it in the first place. So that's when I kind of go, yeah, that's a little ridiculous. Now, I will get back to it. I think a point that Keith is going to make or wanted to make, because I know this was when we had the conversation originally, this was part of his point, was force. If you are given, if it is truly optional and the coach is saying you don't have to participate, fine. But if it becomes one thing where I kind of will be kind of like, okay, is you have the influence of these coaches on these kids. So you're going to have kids that are going to conform just to conform because they don't want to offend their coach or be possibly targeted by their teammates for not doing it. So what are you doing, Keith?
Trying not to curse right now. Keep talking. Go ahead.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, so we're praying in this meeting now too. I see. You're invoking Jesus Christ. From my perspective, I don't know why we need a reference here, but that's okay.
Speaking of annoying, turn your camera off.
Bite me.
But if they force the kids or the kids have to deal with possible, like I said, ridicule, possibly targeting from their own teammates, that's where I kind of go, yeah, this shit shouldn't be done. But in this instance, yes, it was after the game. It kind of was on the coach's own time. And I mean, it's interesting that this is the first time that this case has come up, because I know in Texas, after seeing videos of it and reading various books from sociology and sport, and actually taking 2 classes on sports sociology, these things have been happening for a long time in places like Texas, in places like Florida. They've been constant for probably since programs have started. And they do get away with it. It's not talked about. So this coming up now, that's what interests me the most. That, like I said, these things happen. They've been happening for years there. So, I mean, I'm sure I get the thing of where it is: Florida, Texas, Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina. I get it. So, but they have been happening for a long time. And I'm just interested that this, I find it interesting that this is the first time that it has come up in a legal issue. Wow. Stumped you. Okay.
No, I just like thinking, but is it the worst thing? And is it really a legal, I mean, issue? Like you said, you could participate, you don't have to participate, but you were saying people might be forced to, but I mean, that's just kind of like everything, every trend. And and when these things blow up, it's like one of those things, well, it kind of like takes away from what the purpose is.
Yep.
And it becomes obviously what is taken on today, an issue, which it shouldn't be. It should be like, this was the intent. And it goes back to like, well, what do we teach our kids? What do we believe in? What do we like,
Yep.
And you could agree or not agree, or like it's important, it's not important. And we're really trying to teach our kids to what their importance is and how they're going to go forward. And are these things important to them? And kids should be able at this age to make an informed decision on like whether they're going to participate, if it's important or not important. And I know Keith, I still like, I mean, I know his like some of his like issues, so I like to hear his point. But
First, let's inject a little bit of intelligence into this conversation. Let's get here when we are prepared, Jason. The case was from Bremerton, Washington. And the reason why you haven't seen a case like this before is because it always happens in Texas and Florida and places like that where there's much more Christians involved and no one complains. Finally, somebody had the fucking balls to stand up and say, this isn't right in a place that isn't right-wing Republican red. Bremerton, Washington. And that's
why
why
isn't
the
it
case
right?
was finally heard. And the only reason this is a case, because every other Supreme Court in the history of this country would have thrown this shit out and told them, fire the bastard and don't let him in, because we have crooked pieces of shit on the Supreme Court now. We have a very stacked court that is going to rip this country apart. That's the only reason this is even a case. Any other Supreme Court would not have heard the case at all. They would have turned it back to the courts that already said, fire the bastard. Now, that said, I had to get that out of my system. Perhaps my sarcasm, my dripping sarcasm when I made my first statement wasn't particularly clear. I am an HR guy. We all know that. A football coach leading a prayer that is completely voluntary in the middle of the 50-yard line after a game is over is no different than a boss in an office leading a prayer in his own office and not inviting anybody to be in there. Because if you don't show your fucking ass up in that office, you're not going to be in the boss's favor. There's no question that a human being who wants you to participate in something but doesn't ask you to do it, when you say no, they are inclined to, I'm not going to favor you as much, especially since all these other kids are going to kowtow to what I want and come over here and do it. So it is not a question of, well, they have the freedom to participate or not. No, they don't. The leader of their organization is saying, I'm going to go do this. You can join me if you want. What they're really always saying is, you should really join me. There is pressure to do it every single time. And even if the coach is completely cool about it and doesn't care, the other kids who we all know kids in school are assholes, the other kids will, if you don't join, they will get upset. And I can speak from personal fucking experience, having gone through a wall, literally, with someone else who objected when I did not speak the Pledge of Allegiance in my 10th grade homeroom. He was so angry at me after a while, he attacked me, and we literally wrestled and took out a wall to the next classroom. To say the least, my father had to come in and threaten to sue the school board because they wanted to suspend me as well as the other kid. My father said, "Fuck you, that is not going to happen." My son stood up, he showed respect, he does not have to say anything. He certainly doesn't have to utter the words, which is why I didn't do it, under God, because at the time I didn't feel like it. I didn't believe in that sort of thing. I chose to, I was very respectful, and I stood there without moving, didn't speak, and I got attacked for it. And that's what would happen on field. And by the way, I'm speaking for my sons too, who are both, of course, unconscious at this hour. We've had long talks about this, and they're very angry about the Supreme Court decision, as is a vast majority of anybody in this country who's under 30. It is absolutely horrifying that the Supreme Court would allow this type of obvious bullying to now be completely condoned throughout the school system of the United States. It is a disgrace. There are 6 Supreme Court justices who should be impeached for their stupidity. But I don't have an opinion on this.
I'm not going to get into the setup of the government, but I will say that I think in your example, like after you had that fight, did you say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Fuck no.
Exactly. So you didn't cave into it. You wanted to exercise your individual right.
Because I happen to have been blessed by a father who supported me.
Let me finish. You wanted to exercise your individual right. You did. Somebody came against you because they disagreed with you at some level. That person was made right, correct? They didn't attack you anymore. You had the right to not do that.
I'm sorry, you didn't. I'm sorry, I never said anything about what happened with that particular individual and me after that. I was only a sophomore in high school. The next 3 years of my life were hell.
But you have that right, and so you exactly know what you're talking about. But you still.
I had the inner strength to stand up to it. 99% of kids in schools today do not have that kind of strength, do not have that kind of support from their parents. Absolutely not. And that's what's leading to the bullying and the high suicide rates in schools, because those kids can't handle it.
But I'm bringing it back to the current case. You had the right to, you exercised your individual right. Why do you want to take that away from somebody else?
If it was a student who wanted to go out in the middle of the field and pray, that's fine. The coach is a leader. The coach is a role model. The coach has power. That's why I talked about HR in the business world, because the coach has the power to put you in the lineup or not put you in the lineup. There's a perception that if I do not participate, I'm not going to start. I'm not going to get the plays. I'm not going to be on this football team. There is a pressure that says I have to participate, even if I don't.
I can take my experience
for like 10 years or better. So there was no history of it.
And finally, somebody had the fucking balls to stand up and actually oppose it.
I don't know about that.
And I can tell you what I've seen is that the coaches, they don't care. If you're the player, if you're the best player they've got, they put you in. It doesn't matter.
This isn't about the best players. This is about the average players. That most of the players are, maybe I play, maybe I don't. It's, and if you're on the borderline and the decision whether or not I play is based on whether or not I do a fucking Christian prayer because I'm Muslim or I'm Jewish, are you kidding me? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
In like 12 years, nobody has had this complaint before with this coach.
I'm sure that people have had a lot of complaints with this coach, and the school board finally stood up and said enough is enough. It takes a long time to overcome these societal quote unquote norms. It took a long time for us to defeat slavery in this country. We're still working on that, as a matter of fact.
I think you're an example of what you're saying you're against. It's hard. It's hard for me. I mean, I understand you're saying maybe these kids are weak and maybe they count out, but I think that's something that you have to look for. I mean, anybody with authority can say that. A boss can say, hey, you need to vote for this person. Hey,
That's right.
a cop can say, hey, you need to do this. There's a
And
lot of
that's the
positions.
stuff that needs to be put to an end in this country and everywhere else.
And what
You're
needs to be put to an end?
absolutely right.
What needs to be put to an end?
This type of behavior needs to end everywhere, not just this country. And it needs to start somewhere. Slavery didn't end instantly on a dime in 1863 or 1865. It took centuries, millennia to get to that point. There's a lot of work to be done. But we have this thing in this country called separation of church and state for a reason. There is no place in school for anything that has anything to do with religion other than teaching something of it in classes.
But I think we also have individual rights and freedoms.
Not
In this
on
country.
school property. Not on school property.
I disagree. I disagree with that. You exercise your individual right. Why can't this
I
guy?
exercise my individual right not to speak. It was no impact on anyone else.
Have people complained about this guy? I mean, I see what you're saying, but you can take that example and you can put that in anything.
You honestly think that someone in Bremerton, Washington said something after 10 and a half years, the school board just stood up and went, fuck him, fire him? No, of course not. There have been complaints about him for several years, and finally someone said enough was enough.
I just think that, even people complaining about that stuff, if he were not a Christian, if he were black and doing it, would we have the same thing? Probably not.
Well, interestingly enough, I think a day after the Supreme Court decision was passed down, in a different school district, a satanic cult has applied for the right to pray at school football games. Well, let's see if they get approved. Let's see if they get approved, because I guarantee you they won't, because they're not Christian.
There's been when this came out, there's been that they cited how many times that other religions have been granted the same types of things. So that's not necessarily true. If you listen to conservative,
By the way, if you really want to go down this rabbit hole,
no.
if you've been following the comments on some of the stuff that I posted on Facebook, because obviously I've been somewhat verbose, not just on this topic, but on a lot of them. Several of the comments come back to this, you can't separate church and state because look at the dollar bill, and God we trust is on the dollar bill and on courthouses and all that. And you know something? I firmly believe it should be removed.
Well, I can understand that point.
But it should be removed throughout anything that deals with our government, and the public school system is part of our government.
But they push a lot of other things that, nowadays might be considered religion too.
But they don't push it in the sense that they are stopping activities or getting people to, guilting them into participating. They're trying to inject it into the core teaching, to teach about the different sets of beliefs, to show the diversity of this country through education, not by making them participate in any of it. That's what all the efforts are for. We're not even talking about apples and oranges. We're talking about apples and zebras here. There's no comparison between the two topics. But again, I repeat, I have no opinion here. What can I say?
You amaze me.
I just find it ironic that you refuse to speak for the pledge. You exercise your right, and now you're going against somebody else for exercising their right. And what you're saying is, well, the kids today are too weak.
Wait a minute, hold on. I was the kid exercising my right to simply stand still versus a coach who is a leader, a role model, a mentor, and in charge, exercising his right to lead prayer. How do you compare those two things?
But is he leading prayer or is he praying? I don't know that he, I don't know, I don't know.
The
if the
leader of an
Supreme Court said-
organization, if the
Reading it.
leader of a group, if the leader of a group
He is
goes
reading
and
it.
sits down in front of people and prays, the people who follow him, the people who report to him feel very compelled to participate. There's pressure upon, it's unbelievable, whether it's your boss, your coach, your teacher, your person of the cloth. You feel compelled to participate because that's what society demands. And most people will follow because most people are lemmings. Some people don't want to do that. They should not be forced to do that, but in a situation like that, they don't have a choice.
Exactly.
A student standing up and not speaking just so he doesn't participate is not nearly the same thing and is not a comparable topic whatsoever.
Let me ask this, so if people protesting and those kinds of things, if people taking a knee,
I have no problem with that. I love it.
if they take a knee and they're in a sports game and they're a great player, are they put in by the coach?
Have you seen one? Yeah, actually, I'm sorry. The guy who started it all, have you seen him play one down since then? Because he went against the establishment and he hasn't played football since.
But he didn't have skills to begin with.
I'm sorry, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league at the time.
Who?
Colin Kaepernick was one of the best
He was
quarterbacks.
nowhere near the best quarterback.
At
He
the
was
time
benched.
he did it.
He was benched. No. He was
But he
benched.
was still one of the better quarterbacks. He was very
Oh,
talented.
come
He
on.
could
He was
easily have
shit.
been a
He
starter in
was
the
falling
league.
apart. His career was going down the toilet. I don't know what
Could
the fuck.
easily
you're
have started in
talking.
the league at that point still.
He was going to shit and was benched already anyway before he did it. No, you're
Well,
wrong.
we have a difference of opinion on that one because there's a lot of people who think he could have still been a starter in the league at the time.
Well, he wasn't for the San Francisco 49ers.
Maybe they had someone even better, but he was still a very good quarterback
He
at the time.
sucked. No, he didn't. Look at his numbers again. He sucked. He was sucking big time at that point. I don't know what you're smoking.
I'm sorry, what do you know about sucking big time? Oh, never mind. The point is, he took a stand, a quiet one, and never played again.
But he wasn't playing at
Okay.
the time.
Okay,
I have-
wait. But what about the other players that did it that did?
Well, once
Kaepernick is the only one. Whoa.
this is why Colin Kaepernick is a global hero, because he
Kaepernick
started a
is
trend
not-
that allowed a lot of people to do it. You know, once a lot of people do it, you don't have a choice but to accept it.
Kaepernick is not the only one that did it. Everybody else that did it that was involved with him is still playing, except for him. Why? Because it sucked.
Actually, most of them are out of the league because that was quite a few years ago.
They came back. They did play. Kaepernick is the one that didn't, and it wasn't just because of his stance. It was because of his shit play and his attitude that had started before he
He was
did that.
never given a chance to participate again.
He actually like did his own camp and like invited all these people out, and it was just all showboating.
He had a practice. Let's not forget that he had.
Why did the San Francisco 49ers give him over $30 million in a legal settlement after he sued the league? And the NFL, by the way, participated in that. Well, you know, if he sucks so bad, why did they give him $30 million?
Guaranteed money they had given him in the contract originally anyway.
So
That
he
was
had
his guaranteed money.
So he had to sue them for guaranteed money? Really? I don't think
Yes.
so.
Wow.
That's
come
not how
Yes,
the NFL works.
Anyway, Kaepernick, you're jumping around here, and it's honestly there's
Well,
about
but
a
it's
million.
a good example because it's someone who took a stand against certain things. Now,
This is a big
this is a stand against oppression of people of color. So it's a somewhat different topic. But again, by the way, I'm honored that to be compared by what I did to what Colin Kaepernick did. I think that's wonderful. And you know, I think I epitomize the expression, "I'll go through a wall for you," for sure. But most people don't have the courage to do what Cap did. Most people don't have the courage to do what I did, or to tolerate what came afterwards. Like I said, that was my homeroom class from early in 10th grade, and I had to deal with that guy and a lot of other people and a lot of unbelievable amounts of abuse that we'll talk about in other shows for the next 3 years. So I could definitely see the path to some kids. And by the way, some of the kids in my school committed suicide. Some of the kids in every school commit suicide. And I could see a different person than me have gone down that path too for what I had to endure before and after, especially after that incident.
I mean, it kind of goes back to like what Chad was saying, that, you know, schools teaching not what the core values of just school, and all these other things are coming in. And today we think that, you know, we're suiting children, or, you know, to be better adults. So is that the goal of the school? Or is it, you know, what they should be learning, which we all learned as traditional school, is your reading, writing, and arithmetic, you know?
That's all I need the school to teach is reading, writing, arithmetic. That, and I need I need them to do very good at that. The other stuff he'll learn at home, he'll learn at church, he'll learn wherever.
You hope.
Yeah.
Because we could go down a rabbit hole of all the, like,
not
all
always
the
the
other
case.
things
We
that
know
the
that.
schools are pushing right now, and you know, which I just not want to discuss. So, I mean,
I mean,
So one comment I'll make on, and I'm not gonna, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole either. It's not because we may disagree about it, it's because it's a very lengthy topic. But I would say that the schools are being asked to incorporate things into their curriculum to counter all of the false teachings that have been part of the curriculum since the beginning of this country. There's so much stuff that is taught that is absolutely not true, or that is based in racist or biased practices that is part of our normal behavior. That's why a lot of people are pushing an agenda to incorporate other things into the curriculum. But
I mean, because we can
Another
even
stick
like
goes.
argue what makes up a religion. I mean, you know, a cult following, you know, and there's like I'm just saying that, you know, there's like a lot of other things that, you know, some people might consider a religion, but you know, I just mean is we always just like consider, like, you know, oh, Catholics, Buddhism, you know, and a couple of other things that are religions, but other things become religions as well.
Well, and that's another issue this country has is, so we finally get out of the realm of thinking this is a Christian country, and most people haven't gotten out of that. But when we do get out of that, we start thinking, oh, Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, and then we stop. When in fact, you're right, and this is where it becomes really problematic because there's like 10,000 religions. Even beyond the 4 that I mentioned, there are still a number of other fairly major ones. Not just the one that's set up by 4 people to get their own nonprofit. There's plenty of those too, but I'm talking about there's still a good handful of more major religions, and even they are not represented in the school systems, and they're shunned in the school systems. Here we are in 2022, and even Judaism is mostly shunned in the school systems. Despite the long history, it's only been in the last few years that people are starting to recognize that Hinduism is a religion, and that there's a little bit of acceptance in this country, but Jews are way ahead of that, and we're not even close to being accepted yet. So there's a lot of work to be done, but not in the schools.
I disagree. I mean, maybe in the schools and stuff, but from my perspective, I think I have 2 observations. One observation is that it's the history of our country is undeniably Judeo-Christian. And that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. That's where a lot of the, you know, when you think about the breaking away from this church, and they wanted a place to you know, the pilgrims and everything wanted a place to pray on their own and to have their own religion without being under the state. They wanted their freedom of religion, right? So there's part of that, but that plays into this. That plays into the history. But at the same time, you know, I think I would agree with you that not all religions are accepted here, but I have a
Really?
no. I mean, I Jewish religions. I mean, I don't know, man. I haven't seen that, you know. And I used to work in Miami. I was the only Christian working in my office. They were all Jewish.
I just think that also
I don't
has
know.
sex become a new religion.
What?
Well,
Broke-
so
what'd
much
you
sex, well, so much sex is introduced into our school systems. Is that a new religion?
You could make an argument. I see where you're going with it. I'm not sure I would necessarily go with it, but I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah. It's just a fleeting moment, Keith. Thanks.
Well, you know, in sex, people scream, oh God, all the time. So it must be a religious topic.
How would you know?
Well, you know, I have ancient memories. What can I say?
But you know, for me, it boils down to an individual's right to do what they want, as long as they don't infringe on the rights of others.
I
But-
hardly agree with that, but
Live and
coaches,
let live.
teachers, and bosses,
Yeah.
by the nature of their position, are infringing on others by doing that.
Yeah.
Ooh, another
Because
time.
you can say all you want that about the freedom to participate or not, but there are coaches that will probably give you a hard time about it, and teammates. So it's not, you're going to be pressured into it, and that's not right either. So it's tough. It's in some places it's probably more acceptable because of the community. Sure. But this is not the last case we're gonna hear of this, for sure. There's gonna be more.
Well, and to Keith's point, this was the first time that an employee was found to have the right. Usually it's the students that bring the cases. This was the first one with an employee. That's what differentiates.
To be fair, it's
differentiates.
the first one that was heard. These cases have been brought before and tossed out because there's always been a separation of church and state. This is the first time the case was heard, and the case was then decided by a very biased court. But it's not the first case at all.
But it's like one of those things. What are we teaching our kids? Is separation of church and state, from my view, is like the government is not. And what I would teach my kids and do is that, you know, the government isn't pushing a single religion. Basically, is how it relates to me and how I teach my kids. Now, going forward, I know that they're going to run up against other people that read it differently, and you know, for me and my household, that's how I view it and how I explain it to my boys. So you know, them in their adult life and in their teen life, you know, probably more or less in their teen life, that is a question that they're going to come up against. Not as much because they do go to Catholic school, but you know, in really public view, you know, with their friends, they do have friends outside of that. You know, it might come up, and I'm pretty sure that they understand, like, my household view of, and my wife, you know, we both agree on this, is that that's the way that we view the Constitution / law, that how we're going to raise our boys.
Well,
And in your own house, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all, and I highly encourage it.
well, but Lee, I mean, like you said, you have that thing, in in a private school, well, in a private school like that, where, I think that if anybody ever had a problem with that or brought that up as an issue, I'd be fucking shocked. Because I mean, for somebody to bring that point up in a Catholic school, it's kind of like, why are you here? So,
Well, we do allow, well, not we allow, but there are actually classes for non-Catholic people that do want to go to school, which are actually, they do have people that are going to our school that are not Catholic.
oh, I know
Yeah,
Jewish kids that went to Bishop Art.
yeah,
So it's not like I mean, because a school like Bishop Art was pretty well respected in
right.
New Jersey. So yeah, they're it wasn't on a level of Rutgers Prep, but it was up there definitely. I mean, Don Bosco Prep is another one that I believe Don Bosco Prep is actually a pretty sure it's a Catholic high school in Jersey. It's also a football factory. Yeah, and I know that's a very mixed cultural high school, Don Bosco Prep. I mean, we worked when we worked in CTC, they were always in the state championship, and we always had interactions with them through the radio station, and it was pretty interesting to see the way they operated. And I mean, you talk about well-respected teams and coaches in this state, and I had heard and seen some of their, after game activities, and it's not a big secret that it was done. Usually when they did it in locker room, but they were doing it, and it wasn't big news. I know Bishop Art, they were doing it in the locker room. They were not doing it on the field. So, and it was after the game. So I mean, the other thing is, and this is something that I find interesting of, you have an aspect, an angle where a player gets hurt. Let's say a player gets hurt. Okay. It's not exactly a big secret that the game, when the game stops, yeah, they take a knee. They're taking the knee for more than for a couple of different reasons. It's not just they kneel in solace, or some of them do. Yeah, they are. What?
Yes,
Can I finish my point, please?
they are all in their own way praying that the individual is not hurt. I'm a Jew. I can take a knee and pray. I don't have to do a Christian prayer to do it. Taking a knee doesn't mean anything. It just means you're in silent thought.
And here's my view of it as somebody who's taken a knee a lot, and like in high school we have kids like practically deheaded. We'd take a knee so that the coach could see what's going on, and we're like going, oh shit, man, I hope he's okay. That's it.
That's a standard thing.
So
I was a
everybody
coach. I was a coach of sports for years. I coached sports for a number of years with my boys. The rule on every team was, if there's an injury on the field, you go down to one knee. It's just to immobilize the entire team to make sure they're secure, so I can focus on the injured player.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the way I look at it. I can't remember any time when I was down praying for somebody. It was always, damn, he got slammed. I hope he knows what day it is.
Well, but it's also, I think there's an instinct for players, even kids, to get out of the way so that responsible people can attend to the injured person. What?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm just saying that there's another reason why on those teams the kids take a knee other than praying. And for us, it was more to kind of, as you said, stabilize the group and allow the coach to kind of deal with what's going on and to see above our heads, the people he needs to flag to the field.
But even if it was everybody taking a knee to pray, every religion or anybody who has thoughts in that area prays taking a knee to do it. It doesn't mean going taking a knee doesn't mean Christian. Anyway, we've really been all over the place today, haven't we?
It's good. We got a little vim and vigor going here this morning.
Yes, I'm now wide awake despite my complete lack of sleep for the last week. So yes, I feel much better now.
A little salt in the podcast is a good thing.
That's right. And then there's Jason. Speaking of salty.
Who's all dressed up today, so who knows what he's doing later.
So why are you sharing that message with everybody, Jason?
Because you need to stop cutting everyone off.
But I'm pissy.
I understand your point, but dude, please just stop cutting people off. Jesus Christ, let us friggin' finish what we're saying. Thank you.
Whiner he is today, I tell you.
Ay, ay, ay.
Well, this topic was your idea, dude.
I think it was a good one.
I think it was great. And it's representative of all of our kids too. You know, it's how we choose to share this stuff with our kids. And in the older kids' cases, you know, they're really, you know, they've got some pretty solid opinions on this stuff too. And any chance to cut off Jason during the conversation is a great idea. It's perfect. I love it. By the way, go back when I publish this, go back and look at the recording, because for like the first 20 minutes I sat here and, you know, stared at the wall over there because I didn't want to say anything. I wasn't cutting anybody out. So
But you've been doing it ever since.
beautiful.
Win.
I don't mind.
It's all good, Jason. Don't sweat it. I know you're the producer, but we're sorry. We won't do it again.
Shout out to the one viewer, Linda, big Linda. Yeah, sorry for Keith's running over.
She's not gonna
people.
like me. She's not gonna like me after today. That's
Oh yeah.
And the 50 and the 59 fucks in there. I think they all
We
happened
had a
about 30 seconds.
conversation last night, so
No, this is, like I said, this is not something that's going away. Because like I said, it's been swept under the rug for years. I guess it's just, I wonder though, does it happen outside of the high school level? What, Keith?
Oh, I can talk now?
No, I'm talking about, I'm talking about sports in general.
It happens everywhere. It happens at the high school level, the less than high school level. It happens at the college level. It even happens in the professional levels. I would say the difference when you get to the professional levels is everybody's already getting paid. So it's not it's a different approach, a different topic. It probably still shouldn't happen there, but I think people, when they get older and more mature, you can have a moment to pray that's usually quiet, where everybody does their own thing, as opposed to let's lead this with references to Jesus Christ. By the way, that's an interesting point to make here. One of the things that's not very clear in the court case from Bremerton, Washington, is what was the coach doing when he prayed? Did he kneel and simply not say anything, or did he lead a Christian prayer? I don't know the answer to that.
I think it evolved. That, like I mentioned earlier, he's been doing this for a long time, silently by himself, and now it's involved the entire team. Nearly is what the point you're getting to, is where now we're at a level of like where he started from to where it's evolved to, and I think that's more the problem now, is where we are today.
If we lived in a world that was that was genuinely where everybody takes a knee and has their own thoughts. And you can do what you want and participate if you want or not participate, and there was no ramifications, I would have no problem with it.
Mhm.
But there's always ramifications. There's always pressure. There's always peer pressure. There's always, especially at the younger ages.
Yeah.
And I am living proof of it.
Oh, no, totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. And the influence isn't always coming from the coaches. It's not. It's coming from the teammates as well. No matter what anybody wants to argue. It definitely can come from your teammates as well.
In my case, I had the full support of teachers. My homeroom teacher had no problem at all. As long as I wasn't making a ruckus, I could do whatever I want. I didn't even have to stand. I chose to stand because I thought it was respectful, but I didn't even have to do that. My homeroom teacher would have been cool with anything I did.
I mean,
Maybe
and it's also
surely,
like one-
surely.
and this is a interesting thing, or maybe not, but I did have an issue with scouts. We say the pledge before we start every meeting, and there was a guy in the back that refused to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I actually went up to him and was like, "Hey man, you're setting a bad precedent, man. What are you doing?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm French, and I don't stand for your pledge." And I was like, "All right, interesting to know, but it's like weird because a couple kids like mentioned the same thing, like, and this might be a similar, not exactly, what Keith is saying, but it's like one of those things. Like for me, like in my head, I was like, dude, what's this guy's problem? Like, why is he in the back just like refuses to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, at all?" And I was like, and it's like one of the things where you do get it's like one of those things where you do like it just becomes a knee-jerk reaction where everybody gets up and says the pledge. I mean, as well as town council. We start every
Right.
town council meeting the same way. Everybody gets up and does the pledge. And there is a British guy, and he always like fumbles or does something odd because he doesn't actually do the pledge, and and I focus in on that, and it is an interesting thing, where we
Right.
run into prayer is like like Keith is saying that um do people feel left out? Are they doing it like facetiously just to like be part of the team, or because they fear that they might not get the spot that they want? But we do have like some preconceived notions on ourselves that like this is what you do as well. But yeah, it's a very interesting topic, Jason.
But you just kind of sort of proved the point that Keith was trying to make.
I know, and it's not my point, but it just came to my head, and
Because you just said that you kind of held a judgment against the guy for doing it. So
yeah, I know what I said, and
He's
I
being very transparent. And I get it too. I mean, I think it would be sorry, I cut him off a little bit there.
Wait.
But and thinking about this from another perspective, this is a situation. If this guy's out there praying, I'm guessing that Keith's sons will not go out and pray with him. Frankie probably would. But it's what they had learned at home. Now the other side of that is, what if there's somebody who's doing something else where you're in an organization where you're trying to teach your kids something, and there's somebody who does contrary, an adult who does contrary, and they feel the pressure to go with that person. That's the other big thing that's out there is like, and I'm not talking about our kids, but other kids. What if they said, "Oh, well, this guy's like this group of people are going to treat me good," and it's something for bad.
your audio broke up as like right as you were saying what.
Oh, I'm just saying, what if they're, and on the one case, our kids are probably at a point where they would know if they're going to join or not, right? They can make that decision based on what they've learned at home. Not everybody's good, but I think our kids, now the thing I think to Doug's point is if there's this other contrarian point, maybe it's for bad, that was something that we could agree is for bad, and maybe that would be a draw for other children, like, oh, well, I don't get love at home, and this group of people is gonna give me the love, and then next thing you know, they're doing something bad that we could all agree is bad.
Well, I mean, you can say that. I mean, we've seen the cases where you have like, I mean, I'll use an example of let's say somebody like Jim Jones, something like that.
Yeah,
Or Dave.
exactly.
But there's another side to this that I really didn't want to touch on. But you have somebody like, let's say, and Doug's gonna probably roll his eyes, but Cardinal McCarrick. Cardinal McCarrick was the cardinal in our area for a very long time. He was a very respected religious figure in the area. But these cases against him, and there was a few of them, finally came out to the point of him being defrocked. I believe I think they were only lawsuits. I don't believe he did there was any criminal cases against him, but we all kind of know where I'm going with this, of what he was found guilty of. Down to, there was a school, Cardinal McCarrick High School, that was closed down, had to rename, and then was eventually closed down partially because of some of McCarrick's indiscretions. So you have these things happening. Sometimes it's religion, sometimes it's, and we all, and there's cases with the Scouts, and there's cases with this, and cases with that. But to one point of, Elise and I were talking about it, and when Delana was wrestling, we both kind of said, and not that he would have done it, because he's not that kind of guy, I didn't think. But what if her coach would have said it, decided that let's pray, blah blah blah. If she had the choice to participate or not, okay. But if you have the issue of force, that's where that's where my huge problem comes into this. Anybody have anything they want to add before we head out of here? One at a time.
Yo, if you got something to say, post it on Facebook, because we love comments.
We do. Go ahead,
That
Keith.
I'd like to get feedback on. This should, I mean, if anybody's watching this, there should be some very interesting responses to that, to what we've talked about.
And I guess my final comment is, I stand, kind of by what I said earlier, is like, I'm a big proponent of live and let live, and following the golden rule, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. So, in this case, it's the same thing.
If done correctly and done without,
Yep.
over influence, yeah, I don't disagree with you. I would not disagree with you on that. But it has to be done right, fair, and correctly, and with balance. That is going to be an issue that we will probably end up seeing. I mean, we know the stigmatisms against some religions in this country. We've all seen it. I mean, we've seen what's happened to synagogues. We've seen what have happened to temples, Muslim temples. I mean, in our town, they've been debating putting one up for various reasons. But on some of the on one of the residents or parents page, it got a little ugly with some of the the way things were worded. You can see there's judge prejudices, let's just call it that, against certain religions, especially the Muslim religion. And Judy, like I said, Judaism. I mean, I don't know if you got Keith. I know you remember well what Al Sharpton did in Harlem.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well,
So
it's one
it
of
does
many
happen.
different things, yes.
It does happen, Chad. I'm sure. I mean, you may know, you may not know exactly what it was, but yeah, Al Sharpton's not the nicest guy, and he's very, very, very prejudiced.
But he's one of, countless examples of that
Sure.
are open and raw, and the attacks against synagogues in this country continue weekly. I mean, the anti-Semitism is horrific. But it's not just, it's not just Judaism by any means. It just happens to be my religion. That's all. There are the attacks against anything different that isn't Christian. And even within Christianity, the infighting between various different groups is horrific. One of you mentioned the pilgrims and coming to this country to so they could practice their own religion. Did they come here to practice their own religion, or did they come here to allow people freedom of religion?
Freedom is what I think.
Right.
But I think it was related to they needed to practice.
They wanted to practice theirs, but I thought it was they wanted to be free of the rule that said they had to practice a specific thing. And we've never followed that. In the country, we've never, ever followed that. We simply repeated what we escaped. That's all we did.
Go ahead, Doug. You can make another point if you want to. Go ahead.
No,
Yep.
It's been a great morning, and I'm ready to go make breakfast and get on to all the things I have to do today.
Now, Doug, you can come here and make breakfast for me. Come on.
Yeah, ham and cheese omelets.
Listen, do I look like I've missed a meal? I'll eat anything. I don't care.
We really need to get together, Keith. Well, yeah, I really think that we should get together again, even if it's just the three of us, and do some cooking at your house. If you offer up your house.
Absolutely. I tell you, we're about to go back on tour. The boys and I, July 20th. We'll be back around the 14th of August.
I mean, I go down to Jersey all the time. Yeah.
After that, absolutely.
We could do it and set up a Zoom with him so that he could actually be with us.
It doesn't have to be a holiday or nothing. I'm down to Jersey all the time, so it's not that unusual for me to, come down.
Yeah, we know. And you never tell us when you're coming.
Yeah, in a Zoom call, that sounds really good. I'd love to sit here and watch you guys eat awesome food. That is something that really sounds appealing to me.
Chad, get off your ass and get up here. Come on, let's go.
Well, let me know what it is. We'll see what we can do.
This is an interesting place to leave this, but we're well over an hour now at this point. We probably will end up picking up this discussion along the way, because there's other aspects of what you can consider religion in the schools that are coming up at this point and probably going to be debated by the Supreme Court as well. But before I go, you mentioned the reason why I'm dressed up. We're going out for my wife's birthday. My wife's birthday is Wednesday, and we're going out today and then again Wednesday. But I just want to say, because she's actually standing here, and happy early birthday to my wife.
Hi, Elise. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
Happy
Elise.
birthday.
Doug is a trooper. He has done this show with the croup sweeping through his household the entire week.
Sorry.
We just asked if you're all five. Like I said, I think this is an interesting, a good place to leave us, because, like I said, we're over an hour at this point. So, from all of us here at Dad's on Life, take care, everybody. And as always, Keith, a big eat my shorts this week.
Up your shaft.
Godspeed.